I had always prided myself on following the rules. As a mechanical engineer, attention to detail was second nature. And when I moved into an upscale neighborhood in suburban Atlanta, I made sure to stay on the good side of the homeowners association. The houses were large and pristine, with meticulously kept lawns and strict guidelines. The HOA's regulations were a bit stuffy, but nothing I couldn't handle. 2 years into my new home, I decided to take the plunge and build a custom swimming pool. It wasn't just any pool, it was designed to be the centerpiece of my backyard, featuring an infinity edge, programmable LED lights, and even a waterfall feature. Every aspect of the design was carefully planned, and I made sure to get HOA approval and all the necessary permits. It took months of hard work, but when the pool was finally finished, I stood in my backyard, feeling a sense of accomplishment. It was a thing of beauty, and I couldn't wait to spend my summer lounging by the water. However, as I was admiring the final touches one afternoon, I saw her. Karen, the HOA president, was walking down the street. She was dressed in her usual designer workout gear, her phone glued to her ear as she rambled loudly about neighborhood affairs. I had only interacted with her briefly in the past, but now, she was headed straight for my front door. I felt a slight unease, unsure of what to expect. I opened the door, and Karen, with her trademark smile, stood there. "Hi, neighbor," she chirped, looking over my backyard. "I couldn't help but notice your beautiful pool. It's the talk of the neighborhood, you know." She paused, as if waiting for me to congratulate myself. I, already feeling a bit awkward, gave a tight smile. "Thanks. I've been looking forward to enjoying it." Karen leaned in closer, her smile becoming a little too bright. "Well, as HOA president, I've been thinking about how to foster more community spirit. A pool like this just sitting here seems like such a waste. What do you say we open it up to the whole neighborhood? We could organize pool parties, swimming lessons, maybe even water aerobics classes. It'll be wonderful for the kids." I blinked, my heart sinking. I hadn't expected this. "I'm sorry, but this is my private pool," I said firmly. "It's not for community use." Karen's smile faltered for a second, but she quickly recovered, her tone now tinged with something more commanding. "But as HOA president, I have certain powers. We could work something out, maybe a small monthly contribution to the HOA maintenance fund. I'm sure we can come to an agreement." I took a deep breath. This was already getting uncomfortable. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested in sharing my pool. It's private property." Her smile cracked entirely. The tension in the air was palpable as Karen's face turned a bright shade of red. "Listen here, you selfish little man," she spat, her voice rising. "Do you have any idea who I am? I have connections all over this county. The HOA bylaws give me the authority to act in the community's best interest. And I'm telling you, this pool needs to be shared." I stood firm, but a knot tightened in my stomach. "Not happening," I replied coldly. Karen's eyes narrowed. "Don't make this harder for yourself," she hissed, before turning and marching away. Muttering under her breath, I closed the door, my mind racing. I had a feeling this was only the beginning. The next few days after my interaction with Karen felt strange. I kept thinking about our conversation, replaying the details in my head. I had thought the matter was closed, but something told me Karen wouldn't let it go so easily. Sure enough, just a few days later, she showed up at my door again, this time with a printed sheet in her hand. I could hear her heels clicking against the sidewalk before I even saw her. She looked almost too put together for the occasion, her workout gear still perfect, but her smile a little too wide, a little too forced. "Hi there." Karen greeted me with the same overly enthusiastic tone. She stepped closer to me, holding the paper out in front of her. "I've been thinking about our conversation," she began, "and I really believe that opening up your pool to the neighborhood would be a wonderful thing. We could organize events, Maybe some family swim days. Or even a community swimming class for the kids. Imagine the positive impact it would have. I felt my stomach churn. I had a sinking feeling about where this was going. I told you before. Karen, I said, trying to remain calm. This is my private pool. I paid for it. Designed it. And I don't plan to open it up for the community to use. Karen's eyes narrowed. And her smile faltered. But only for a second. But you don't understand. This pool is a resource, something that could bring people together. It's not just about you enjoying it, it's about the whole neighborhood, she said. Her tone now shifting from friendly to more forceful. As HOA president, I'm doing my job. It's about building community spirit. We could even have a small fee for maintenance. You wouldn't have to worry about any additional costs. I shook my head. My patience wearing thin. Karen. No. This is my pool. I built it for myself. Not for the whole neighborhood. I'm not interested in sharing it. She stepped forward. Almost pushing her way into my personal space. Mark, she said. Her voice dripping with condescension. You have to understand. The HOA board has a responsibility to the community. I'm sure if we take a small fee from everyone who uses the pool, it could work. A community resource needs to be accessible to everyone. It's about doing what's best for everyone, not just you. Her words were like a slow burn. And I could feel my anger rising. Karen. I paid for this pool with my own money. And I followed every rule. It is not a community resource. And I'm not going to share it with anyone. That's my final word on the matter. Karen's smile finally slipped. Her expression hardening. I don't think you understand the bigger picture, she said coldly, turning away. As HOA president, I do have authority here. And this will not be the last time we discuss it. I watched her walk back down the driveway. Her heels clicking louder with every step. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. I knew Karen was persistent. But I had no intention of backing down. My pool was mine. And I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me, especially not under the guise of community spirit. Over the next few days, Karen's behavior escalated in ways I hadn't anticipated. At first, it was small things, flyers in my mailbox with highlighted sections from the HOA bylaws about community spirit and shared amenities. But soon, it became much more blatant. Karen wasn't just sending me passive-aggressive messages anymore. She was actively organizing her friends to monitor my property. I first noticed something odd when I saw a group of women, all in matching workout gear, walking slowly past my house. They weren't walking for exercise, they were blatantly stopping at my fence, peering through the gaps, and taking pictures. I saw them again the next day. And then the day after that. They never waved or even looked at me. But I could see their eyes scanning the perimeter of my backyard as they whispered to each other. I didn't want to make a scene. But this was becoming ridiculous. I installed security cameras. Not only to catch these intruders but to protect myself in case things went further. And then, a few days later, things did go further. I was out back, taking a dip in the pool after a long day at work. I was finally able to enjoy the peace and quiet I had fought so hard to achieve. But then I heard footsteps. No, not just one person, but a group. My heart skipped a beat when I turned around and saw Karen, flanked by 3 women in bathing suits, all carrying pool floats and coolers. They were headed straight for my gate. I quickly got out of the pool, trying to cover myself with a towel. But I was more shocked than anything else. What are you doing? I demanded, stepping forward. This is private property. Get off my land. Now. Karen gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. This pool has been requisitioned for community use. Mark, she said, as if she was talking about a park, not someone's private backyard. The HOA board has decided that this is a neighborhood resource. And we are going to enjoy it today. I could feel my blood boiling. No, I said firmly. This is my pool. You have no right to be here. Leave. or I'll call the police." Her smile turned to a sneer. "Go ahead," she spat. "Call them. We'll see what they say about you hoarding community resources and preventing the children from enjoying their pool." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're trespassing. Get out. Or I'll have no choice but to call the cops on you." Karen stood her ground, arms crossed, as her friends backed her up. The tension in the air was thick, and I could feel my pulse racing. "If you continue to restrict access," Karen added, her voice taking on a more sinister tone, "I'll have no choice but to take official action." I pulled out my phone, recording the entire interaction. "This is my private property," I said, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside me. "I'm calling the police right now." Before I could even dial the number, Karen's eyes narrowed. "You'll regret this, Mark," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. And just as she threatened, Karen picked up her phone and dialed 911, her tone suddenly becoming exaggeratedly dramatic. "Yes, officer," she began. "I'm calling to report a situation where a homeowner is illegally restricting access to neighborhood amenities. There's a hostile environment here, and the children are being denied access to the pool. This man is hoarding resources that should be shared with the community." I stood there, watching her, completely dumbfounded. The absurdity of it all left me speechless. She was literally calling the police on me for not sharing my own property. After what felt like an eternity, the police finally arrived. But the whole scene was almost comical. Karen was in full meltdown mode, dramatically waving her hands and crying about how I was ruining the neighborhood's unity and putting children's safety at risk by denying them access to a pool. It was almost too ridiculous to be real. But I was prepared. I had the footage of her and her friends trespassing, as well as the emails and notes she had sent me. As I handed over the evidence to the officers, their demeanor changed. They quickly understood the situation and made it clear to Karen that making false reports was a serious offense. With a frustrated huff, Karen stormed off, leaving the officers to give me a brief warning to ensure I didn't take things too far with her. But I knew this wasn't the end. I could feel it in my gut. Karen was just getting started. The tension between Karen and me was thick in the air as I stood there, trying to make sense of the situation. Karen, along with her friends, was still standing on my property. Despite my clear and firm warnings to leave, I had had enough. The pool was mine, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it. I pulled out my phone and started recording the entire scene, making sure to capture Karen's every word and action. "This is my private property," I said again, keeping my voice calm but resolute. "You have no right to be here. I'm asking you to leave now." Karen glared at me, her eyes narrowing. "I've already told you, Mark," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "The HOA has decided that this pool is a community amenity. The children have a right to access it, and you can't stop them." I shook my head, feeling a mix of disbelief and anger. "I don't care what the HOA thinks. You're trespassing. If you don't leave immediately, I'll call the police." Karen's eyes flashed with annoyance, and she whipped out her phone before I could even dial. "Fine," she sneered, her voice filled with venom. "You want the police? I'll call them. We'll see what they think about you hoarding community resources and restricting access to the pool." I watched in shock as she dialed 911, speaking in a loud, exaggerated tone. "Yes, officer," she began, as if she were reading from a script. "I'm calling to report a homeowner who is illegally restricting access to a neighborhood amenity. He's causing a hostile environment, and the children have been denied access to the pool. I need immediate assistance." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was making a false claim about me, trying to manipulate the situation to her advantage. I stood there, still recording, shaking my head in disbelief at her audacity. Within minutes, the police arrived, their patrol car pulling up in front of my house. Karen immediately began waving her arms dramatically, rushing up to the officers with her story. "Officer, you don't understand," she said. her voice shaking with feigned distress. "This man is hoarding the pool. Denying the kids a place to swim. He's causing a toxic atmosphere in the neighborhood. Something needs to be done." The officers listened patiently, nodding as she spoke. But I could see their eyes flicking to me and then to the security cameras I had set up around the property. As soon as Karen finished, I stepped forward, holding up my phone to show them the footage. "I have security footage of the entire incident," I said, my voice steady. "Here's proof that they're trespassing. I've documented all of Karen's threatening notes and messages. And the pool was built as a private property feature, not a community resource." The officers took the phone and watched the video. They scrolled through the footage, carefully looking at the timestamps and the clear view of Karen and her friends walking through my gate, entering my pool area without permission. I could see the officers' expressions shift as they processed the evidence. After a few tense moments, one of the officers turned to Karen, his face stern. "Ma'am, making a false report to 911 is a serious matter," he said. "You've accused this man of things that are simply not true. We've reviewed the evidence. And you're the one who is trespassing here. I'm warning you now, don't file any more false reports." Karen's face flushed a deep red as she opened her mouth to argue. But the officer raised a hand, silencing her. "This is your first warning, Karen. If you continue to make false accusations, there will be consequences." I stood there, watching her seethe, her mouth working but no words coming out. After a long, tense pause, the officers turned and walked back to their patrol car, leaving Karen fuming in my driveway. I watched them drive off, still in shock that Karen had actually called the police over something so ridiculous. She hadn't even had the decency to apologize or admit she was wrong. But I knew this wasn't over. Karen had shown just how far she was willing to go to try and control things. And if she thought I was going to back down now, she had another thing coming. After the absurdity of the police encounter, I knew I needed to take action to protect myself and my property from Karen's continued harassment. I wasn't about to let her walk all over me and get away with making false accusations, especially when her behavior had escalated so dangerously. I reached out to a lawyer for guidance on how to best proceed, and after carefully reviewing the situation, they advised me on a clear course of action. The first step was to send Karen a formal letter, demanding that she cease all harassment and trespassing on my property immediately. I included a detailed account of everything that had happened so far, along with the security footage of her entering my backyard without permission and the police report from the false 911 call. My lawyer made sure the letter was professional but firm, letting Karen know that if she continued her behavior, I would take legal action. In the meantime, I also filed an official police report for trespassing, documenting Karen and her friends' unlawful entry onto my property. This gave me even more legal leverage if things escalated further. A week later, I received an unexpected call from the HOA board. They had called an emergency meeting after receiving my formal complaint. And it turned out I wasn't the only homeowner who had issues with Karen's overreach. Several other residents had come forward, each with their own stories of her abusing her position as HOA president, threatening them with fines and making unreasonable demands. The board members were shocked by the extent of her actions, especially after seeing the clear evidence I had provided. The meeting was intense. I presented my security footage, showing Karen and her group trespassing on my property, and highlighted the part of the HOA bylaws that specifically addressed board member conduct. As I spoke, I could see the other board members becoming visibly uncomfortable. When I pointed out that Karen's actions had exposed the HOA to significant legal liability, I knew I had their full attention. The turning point came when I referenced a specific clause in the bylaws. Any board member whose actions created legal liabilities for the HOA could be removed from their position. I didn't have to say much more. The board quickly voted to remove Karen from her position as HOA president, by a landslide. It was a 6-to-1 vote. And even the one board member who had supported her seemed to realize the damage she had caused. But it didn't end there. There was one final clause in the bylaws that Karen had overlooked. Any board member removed for cause was personally responsible for any legal costs incurred by the HOA because of their actions. The HOA had to pay for emergency legal consultations regarding the false police report and trespassing incidents. And now Karen was required to reimburse them for those costs. It was a poetic justice that felt satisfying to witness. As for Karen, I heard through the grapevine that she was moving out of the neighborhood. Word was she had accepted a job in another city. But we all knew the real reason: she couldn't face the community after everything that had happened. The new HOA president, who was a retired judge and much more level-headed, personally came by to apologize for the mess Karen had created. She assured me that things would be handled properly from now on, and that my pool was, and always would be, my private property. With that weight off my shoulders, I was finally able to enjoy my pool in peace. Summer was here, and the only thing I had to worry about was whether to add more LED lights or upgrade the pool heater. Karen's reign of terror had come to an end, and the neighborhood was finally starting to heal. In the end, I learned a valuable lesson: always document everything. Stand firm in your rights, and never let anyone, no matter how much power they think they have, intimidate you into giving up what's yours. And there you have it. Karen's reign as HOA president finally came to an end, and I was able to enjoy my pool in peace. It's a reminder that, no matter how powerful someone may seem, standing your ground and knowing your rights can make all the difference. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. Have you ever had an encounter with an overbearing HOA, or someone who thought they could control your property? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, leave a comment, and of course, subscribe to the channel for more HOA drama. There are plenty more stories to come, and I can't wait to share them with you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.